You smell that? Hey, folks, take a big, deep smell. Just breathe it all in right now. What does that smell like? That smells like victory.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On BC. I am your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor and publisher of Eagle Insider. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. So this is another episode that just gets me pumped up to talk about. BC goes out and defeats Wake Forest. And why is this game so important? Well, there's a lot to take away from this. First of all, this is the second year in a row that Boston College has gone out and completely ruined Wake Forest's season. And they did it again just one game after Wake Forest smoked them. Remember, Wake Forest before BC beat Wake Forest in the ACC tournament last year, they lost to them by 30. This year, they lose to them by 20 and then have to go play against them in Winston-Salem. This game was absolutely a blast to watch, and it was also a lot. It was a nail biter. This was one of those where you have to grab your Tums and make sure that you're on the edge of your seat, because that's exactly what this game was. So how's it go? First of all, before the game even starts, before this game is even played, you see the tweet with the starting five for Boston College. You see that Quinten Post is going to be coming off the bench because of illness, and Langford is going to be out because of illness. I saw Post, limited with minutes, and I went, oh, crap. Who has been the catalyst to basically every game that they've won this season? It's been Post. And losing Langford's been big too. I mean, he had some big buckets against UVA. I don't want to downplay that at all as well. So you get bad news right off the bat. If you're like me, you're feeling, oh man, that's not a good way against a Wake Forest team that you matched up poorly against last time. You're feeling like, what is this going to be like, playing on the road against a team Wake Forest knew. I mean, they talked about it throughout this broadcast, that this was a humongous game for Wake Forest. They were sitting at 18-11. And they knew that if they wanted to go to the NCAA tournament, they had to win this game. And what does BC do? They go out and win it. And we'll get into kind of what happens here. So the game starts. Wake Forest, they start off hot. They're battling back and forth. BC good on offense. I reckon because Post was on the bench. I think a lot of us would say, oh yeah, if Quinten Post isn't playing, this offense kind of, is very different with TJ Bickerstaff at the 5 than it is with Post. And it was very clear. Then we get to that point about 5 minutes in where Earl Grant just said, screw it. We're going to put in Quinten Post. And so the limited minutes that we heard about kind of just went out the window as Quinten Post, who probably was playing sick, got out there and played, most of this game. I mean, he had his moments like his normal rest, but he was out there. And it was the minute that Quinten Post enters this game, everything felt different. They started playing differently on offense. They were down, I think, with 12-2 at one point. And all of a sudden, like flash, all of a sudden, BC's scoring. Post is getting things going. Mason Madsen hits a big shot. And all of a sudden, the Wake Forest lead falls apart. BC is tied with them. They're getting back into this game. Now, the end of the first half, you're starting to feel, okay, well, they let up some shots near the end there, and Wake Forest goes into halftime with a 6-point lead. But you saw what BC could do. You saw what they were able to do to Wake Forest to get them, off of their game. And even at 6 points, you're like, okay, they're still in this. They can still battle back and win this. Second half starts again. They're starting to, Wake Forest starts to build more into their lead. And you're like, okay, this is starting to get a little antsy. what happens then is something that was incredible. Well, BC goes on, what was it, a 28-3 run, and not only are they no longer losing, they're up by 15 points. Quinten Post was going crazy with some of the shots he was hitting. We got some big moments from, again, Mason Madsen, who, again, I'm gonna take credit for this. He was on the show earlier this week, so he's getting that, as Mitch Wolf said on Twitter, the Locked On BC boost here, because he had some big shots in this game. And Jaeden Zackery. I don't want to leave out any of these guys because they all had some big moments there. You're feeling good. The crowd is dead. BC seems like they have, they're on Wake Forest's throat. But Wake Forest is a good team. They are a good team. And what do good teams do when they have good players that can take over games? They battle back. And Tyree Appleby, who also has an NIA deal with Applebee's, which I think is amazing, showed why he's one of the best players in the ACC right now. That dude put the game back in Wake Forest's court in a flash. He was hitting shot after shot after shot after three-pointer. And yeah, it was a little sloppy on the BC defensive end. But, man, a lot of that was just Tyree Appleby's really good. And so you watched that lead fall away, and it gets closer and closer. BC's still shooting like 68% in the second half, but it's not mattering because Appleby's hitting three-pointers. He's getting to the line. He's doing everything. So the lead is starting to trickle. You're starting to get that tight feeling in your chest again, as you've seen a lot of BC teams fall apart, and you're thinking, oh God, is this going to happen again? And BC still, they're hanging in there. They're not letting the game fall apart, but the game's getting closer. So, we get to the final moments. And we get some big shots. And, the big moment for me, the big moment that we're all going to talk about is the last 10 seconds of that game. Makai, Ashton, Langford, who many folks, and myself included, kind of just, for the last couple of years, thought he was kind of a limited guard. He's had some kick butt moments this year. And this game was won by Makai, Ashton, Langford. He made a beautiful layup, like a scoop layup shot with 2 seconds left on and it was pure basketball brilliance the way he hit that shot. Because if I tried that, I land on my butt. And all of you in the comment section, probably, unless you're, a basketball player, probably the same thing would happen there, right? He hits that shot. 2.2 seconds remaining. And again, still, I get into that mode where I'm thinking, oh God, this is going to end poorly. In a moment, we'll talk about the last play, the play that won the game for BC. But before we do that, I want to talk about our good old friends and partners over at FanDuel. If you haven't checked out FanDuel, this is the time to do it. Massachusetts, I believe, goes live with online betting on March 10th. So you can sign up for FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Now, if you didn't live in the state of Massachusetts and you wanted to use FanDuel, and you thought, I looked at that 8.5-point spread that Wake Forest had in this game, and I said, there's no way they're going to cover that. I think BC will keep it close. I would have won, but if you had a lot of faith in BC, they're going to win it outright, and you bet the money line, man, you'd be having an even better night than the rest of BC Nation is having right now. So FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Locked On BC, AJ Black here, and we are talking about this win. We're talking about the plays that BC made. Now, setting up this last play, setting up the moment that won this game. So 2.2 seconds left. Up to this point, that last 10 minutes or so of the second half, it felt like every single shot Wake Forest took was going in. Appleby was doing crazy shots and hitting them. And, you know, there were even other players on the Demon Deacons. They were like off balance hitting shots. And it just felt like everything was going in. So the feeling at this point is that, the crowd is really behind Wake Forest. They're really getting into this. That if my thought was going into this, that if Wake gets a shot off, there's a chance BC is going to lose this game. Because they gotta get it across half court. If they can get it half court, then they've got enough 3-point shooters. And one of those guys could potentially hit a long three. And so what ends up happening, they don't even get the chance for that to happen. They try to inbound it. Jaeden Zackery, who I love watching him on defense. This guy is a pest and in the best way. He's out there and he steals it and he just launches it in the air, which is what he should have done. That way that they couldn't follow him, and it was up. And BC wins. They end up winning the game. So in the moment that BC needed to make a stop on defense, when Boston College was feeling like, they're making plays on offense, but the defense isn't getting the job done, they make that stop. They make the one stop at the moment where it matters most to seal this win, to go to Winston-Salem and grab a victory, a place I don't think they've won. I know they were saying, I think I was looking at the sports book. The notes for the game. BC has lost 4 straight regular season games to Wake Forest. As I said earlier, they lost to them by 20 plus points. I love how Earl Grant has been able to adjust in a lot of these games. How he goes out there, that first Wake Forest game, they look like crap. They get beat up. And then he figures out what they're doing, and they've got some momentum, and they go out there and win 2 years in a row. And this is not a knock on Wake Forest. I don't have nothing against the Wake Forest fans, but I love that this has become like a thing that BC, like last year, needed to beat BC in the ACC tournament, and they were well on their way to making the NCAA tournament. They go out there, they lose. They end up in the NIT. This year, Wake Forest just needs to beat BC, and they're pretty much, again on the bubble. They lose, and their bubble bursts again. Steve Forbes can join Mike Young from Virginia Tech as guys that Earl Grant has started to own them. This reputation that BC is getting about being gritty, being hard, being physical, you hear the coaches talking about this. It's real, folks. These teams are having a hard time to beating BC. BC's not a perfect team. They're going to run into teams like NC State or Miami. That's going to blow them out of the building. But what team in the ACC hasn't had that happen? Syracuse tonight just got blown out by Georgia Tech by 30 points in Syracuse. This stuff happens. It's not like you're not going to get, like, if your hope is that BC is going to become this perfect team that wins all their games, that's not a realistic hope. But they've put together 9 ACC wins now. That's 9. They only had 6, 7 last year. They have a chance for 10. They have a chance of going 10-10 in conference. That's huge. They have now tied Steve Donahue's record, and they're looking at you have to go back to Al Skinner to find a team that has won 10 ACC games, which is killer because the way that they're playing right now, if they were able to hold on and do this during the season without all these injuries, especially to Quinten Post, they'd be tournament bound right now. They would be on the bubble, right? If you take out those losses to some of those stupid teams that they lost to, this team would be right up there. But you can't play Monday morning quarterback with injuries. It's just part of the game. But I love it. And after the game, I don't know if you saw it on. So I tweet out. If you follow me on Twitter at LockedOnBC, I have fun on that account. It's not my reporter account. It's my having fun ones. I've been tweeting every time BC beats a team that John Rothstein, if you know who John Rothstein is, he likes to have coach little taglines for every coach. He doesn't have one for Earl Grant, but all these other coaches, he does that. But I also love, I put up the video from last year's ACC tournament game against Wake, where and I forget which player it was. It might've been Alondis Williams was on the bench and said, effing Boston College. I got that up there, and then some Wake Forest fans were chirping, so I had a little fun with them too. That's what we're here for, right? That's supposed to make college sports fun. Now, in our final segment, this is a whole basketball segment because look, football is not doing anything right now, and I would love to talk about the coordinator situation, but we don't know who that's going to be. I mean, I know we've talked about it. It's going to be Chibnitsky and Shimko, and it's going to be an internal candidate on defense, but I have nothing to report on it, so we're gonna have to wait. Let's talk basketball some more. I would love to get into what the ACC tournament situation looks like right now, and get into what your thoughts are. I see a ton of your comments. Before we get into this break, though, if you're listening to this and you have not done so already, head over to Locked On BC on YouTube and hit the subscribe button. All you have to do, it takes 10 seconds, hit subscribe. You will get all our videos every time that they come out. And if you hit the little bell, you'll know when we go live. And if there's fun games like this, I always go live after. And I love to get you guys and your comments in as well. So join our army of BC fans. We're 750 plus right now. I want to get even more of you. So make sure you hit the subscribe button right now. We'll be back in just a moment. Locked On BC, AJ Black here. 71-69. The BC Eagles are well on their way to a 500 record in conference and overall. A big step in the right direction for the future of this program, I have to say. I mean, if you went back and listened to our episodes after the UNH loss, after the Maine loss, after losing to Tarleton State, after, all those, tough games against Cornell, Detroit Mercy, you wouldn't hear the optimism that we have again, that we feel like this program is heading in the right direction. And it's all steering towards the ACC tournament. Now, BC, if they want to make the ACC, the NCAAs, they got to win the ACC tournament. Is that going to happen? I mean, it could, but I mean, that would be a miracle. They're going to be as high as an 8 seed. And I don't know, I couldn't tell you when the last 8 seed to ever win a major tournament would be. But right now, they are in charge of their own destiny, because I think Syracuse's loss means that if BC wins against Georgia Tech on Saturday at home, they can get that 8 seed and finally avoid Tuesday in Greensboro. I think everyone here would love to see BC not have to play that freaking early game and get a bye. I know it might end up with a tougher matchup. I know it might end up with BC going 1 and out. I don't care. At this point, I just want them I want to see them move up in the conference, to be in that upper echelon where they're not playing that first game like a schlub every year. And honestly, if they sit at the 10, I think they end up with who just beat Clemson and has played pretty well of late. So it wouldn't be the worst thing. You'd probably end up I think you're going to end up drawing Wake Forest again. Bring them on. Let's do it. I think that'd be a fun matchup. So Georgia Tech, though, is going to be a tough out. They scored almost, I think, I don't have the score in front of me right now, but I think they scored almost 100 points against Syracuse. I mean, that Syracuse's defense has been really bad this year, but still scoring 100 points. But let's just pretend here. BC beats Georgia Tech. What does that mean for this program? That means they end up the season 16-15. That means they end the season 10-10 in the ACC. This is just 2 years removed from Jim Christian, from some really bad BC teams. This is the momentum we've been looking for. You got it last year with that little mini ACC run at the end of last year. It kind of twinkled a little bit off at the beginning of this year, but it jumped back up with 3 top 25 wins. And then, all the other big wins that they've had. I mean, they beat Virginia Tech twice. They beat Clemson. They beat, UVA. So they've got all these big wins here. And now this is going to bring what BC fans have been dying for, which is the return of the fan base. On Saturday, BC has their final home game. Fans out there, you guys got to pack Conti Forum. This is a major, major game for the Eagles. And we can't have Conti Morgue. We just can't have that. If you want to see BC be successful, if you want to see this program continue to build, this is a moment where you could go out there and show it. You could show a Quinten Post who's probably going to get a lot of people talking to him in this offseason about trying to transfer. You can show him that BC's a place on the up and up and that he should stay here. You'll show all those recruits that are watching, that are thinking about it. This is the place to go. And you'll show the rest of this world and all the people that make snide little snarky remarks about Boston College that this program is no longer the joke of the ACC. That this program is a tough out every single time they're out there with Earl Grant. And I truly believe that they are. Earl Grant has put together a culture of at BC. He does it through hard work, through defense, which they had some tough moments with defense today, but they had their defense and hitting some big shots. I think if you have the time, buy tickets for Saturday, pack Conti Forum. Let's see what, let's show this group, especially for you who have enjoyed watching this game, this team all year. Show them their appreciation. Senior night, Makai, Ashton, Langford's leaving. I mean, this is a kid that got tossed away by Providence, found a little bit of success, and has become a really good player. I don't want to say star, but really good player for Boston College. And, it's his last game at home. I think, this is a big moment for BC. So, back to the ACC tournament talk, though, before we head out. Could BC take a long run in this tournament? Absolutely. Could they get knocked out in one game? Sure. This ACC this year is so unpredictable and so I don't want to call it weak, but just anyone can win it any night. And I think that honestly could say that there's some good there's better teams than you expect. But I think BC could beat any of these teams. NC State obviously played them really tough, but so did Wake Forest the last time they played them, and BC went out there and beat them. So I think this ACC tournament is just going to be a blast. Maybe a nice couple wins there could possibly set up BC for an NIT bid, and that right there is a huge success for Earl Grant in year 2 at BC. On tomorrow's show, we're going to start previewing spring football. I'll get into some details of things you're going to want to know about. Hopefully we'll get some coordinator news in the next day or so, but I'll get into that. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at AJBlack_BC. Again, follow us on YouTube. Thank you all so much. Let's get into your comments, though. Bruce McLaren says, I absolutely love this team. Fun to watch, easy to root for. What are the scenarios for BC to get the bye? I personally think that they are not going to get the bye, might not getting the bye might not be so bad. As I said, they get the win against Georgia Tech they're in. If they lose, they're stuck at the 10. I'm not going to put up some of the things that Frank has put because there's a couple in there with the little curses. But I got to get back and really get into this. Frank Ryan says, AJ, let's go. No DeMar, QP playing sick. No problem. Drew Adams says BC should get an NIT bid. Len Suber, hey AJ, one hell of a win for Boston College. Peter Caruso, will Post be healthy enough to start on Saturday? A, yes. B, no. C, yes and no. I'm guessing he'll be okay. I don't know what it is. Obviously, there's been a lot of bugs and stuff going around, and he's got a couple days to, 3 or 4 days. He's going to get out there. He's going to get his moment. Then we have Deidre, who says Jay-Z and Makai are both better players than DeMar Langford. I'm not going to get into who's better than both, but yeah, they both have had better seasons. And let's see, is there anyone else that I missed? Will Makai, Ashton, Langford declare for the draft? If he does, will he get drafted or undrafted? If he gets undrafted, will he play overseas? Well, he'll declare for the draft because he is out of eligibility. I think he's been around for like 6 seasons. Will he get drafted? I don't think so. I don't think he has enough. I don't think he has enough to do that. Will he play overseas? Sure. I think I could see Makai having a nice career overseas. So I don't think he'll end up in the NBA. I think he'll end up overseas. And you know what? He may end up in the G League for a year or two, but a lot of guys like him that, don't have like superstar potential. They end up, trying a couple seasons, then ending up going abroad. And then you wanted to ask about DeMar Langford too. I don't know. He declared for the draft last year. Will he do it again this year? Probably, but who knows? And so thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow. And thank you all again. So sorry, Deidre. Deidre was saying defensively was not banging on DeMar. Sorry, my bad. I was kind of going through all the comments really quick. And so Deidre is not saying anything bad about DeMar. She's saying that Makai and Jaeden are better defensively. So my bad. Thank you all again for listening. I got to head out. Got to do a little writing and it's time for bedtime. We'll see you again tomorrow. Go Eagles. Take care.